Good morning, YouTube. This is Johnny. Excuse me. I'm drinking coffee this morning. Yeah, it's a morning. It is a Sunday morning here in West Michigan. It is December the 5th, 2021. It is 9:21 in the morning on a Sunday morning here in West Michigan. And it is cold and windy and gray outside. It's supposed to rain and snow this afternoon. I'm hoping it will just be a mild winter here in Michigan, but you never know. So, yeah, I thought I'd make a video since it's quiet here. My wife went to church and I'm sitting in my regular spot, writing in my diary. I'm always writing in my diary. Sometimes I wonder if I'm too self-absorbed. My wife, I always say, I feel like doing this, or I feel like doing that. My wife always says, I just do what needs to be done. I don't go by my feelings. And sometimes I think maybe I am controlled by my feelings or moods. But, yeah, I don't know. But, so this morning I feel like making a video. Just dropping by and saying good morning. It's a new week. It's a Sunday, first day of the week. I don't know how many people out there consider Sunday the first day of the week. Isn't that something like a Christian idea of 7 days and the first Sunday being the first day? When I was in the work world, I always considered Saturday the day of rest because Sunday was the first day of the work week. It wasn't a day of rest because I knew on Sunday, the next day, I would have to go to work. And so the work week began for me on Sunday, whereas Saturday was the day that I considered a day of rest. And usually I worked on Fridays from 7 until sometimes 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And I worked in an egg processing plant, and I unloaded trucks with pulling out these huge things full of eggs, and they would be pulled into a processing plant. It was backbreaking physical labor. I did that for 13 or 14 years. And I hated the job. I think it broke me. Something inside me cracked. But I haven't worked since 2007. I retired when I was like 52 or 53, 54, something around there. And I haven't worked since. But I didn't feel like working all those years, but I did it because it was my duty to help support my family, help my wife, and as we were raising our kids. And so I worked. And when I finished working, my kids were out of college and they were pursuing their callings in this fallen world. So I'm writing in my diary, and I'm on page 1230 for the year 2021. And when January the 1st, 2022 comes, it'll be page 1, and we'll start over. And what this video is kind of like what I'm going to be reading this week. I do have used books that I bought at Blue Stockings. I bought some books there. My wife and I, we went, the other day my wife wanted to go to craft stores. My wife makes crafts with our granddaughter Josie Joy, who comes and stays with us after school during the week. And Carol, Grandma, and Josie, they do crafts. And so my wife wanted to go to a couple of craft stores the other day, and right by the craft stores are thrift stores. So we went to thrift stores, and I found some used books. And I got a book in the mail yesterday. I got this book in the mail, Reform Ethics by Herman Bavinck, The Duties of the Christian Life by Herman Bavinck, who lived from, he was born in 1854 and he died in 1921. He was professor of systematic theology at the Free University of Amsterdam in 1902. He is the author of his, four volumes, Reformed Dogmatics. He was Dutch, so these are translations out of his writings. And this is volume 2, Reform Ethics. This is volume 1 of Reform Ethics, Herman Bavinck. Created, Fallen, and Converted Humanity. I really recommend these. We were talking my last video about the Christian life and what is the Christian life and what are our duties. And somebody made a comment in my last video about the poor. And, excuse me. And I said something about the poor. And if you're a Christian, you're always aware of the poor because that's one of the major teachings of the Bible. The rich and the poor, and money, and self-denial, and so if you're a Christian, you go to church, like my wife, and you give tithes. In the Christian Reformed Church, among the Dutch Reformed, people just tithe. It's just the way it is. You just give 10% and maybe more of your income. And then you have special offerings every Sunday for Christian schools, or offerings for missions, or offerings for the Holland Rescue Mission here, or the food bank, or Habitat Humanity, which builds homes for the poor. And just, you have Christian ministries that, like Haiti, or countries that are having droughts, or all kinds of ministries. And so if you're a Christian, you're always giving money. You're giving out of your abundance to support the poor, the homeless, all kinds of ministries. And that's just part of what it means to be a Christian. So you're always aware of the poor. Now, my wife and I, we grew up poor. My mother, when she died in a car wreck in 1968 in December, she was a barmaid, and we lived in a little tiny duplex. She was divorced, and she had 5 kids. And there were only 4 of us when she died. My younger brother was living with my stepfather in Maryland, and we were living in Los Angeles, California, when my mother was killed by a speeding ambulance on December the 23rd of 1968. And we lived in a tiny little duplex. And we just grew up poor. Now, my mother was able to survive because I don't know how she did it. So I don't remember ever being hungry, but we were not rich by any means. And my wife, she grew up here in Holland, Michigan. Her father worked at a factory. He was a factory worker. He did piecework up until he got sick and had to retire, and then he died. But Carol's mother never had a washing machine. She washed all their clothes by hand. They just lived very simply when Carol was growing up. And my wife and I, we're not materialistic. I mean, you see a lot of books, but my wife and I are not into material things. You know, maybe books, and that's about it. My wife is very, very non-materialistic. She just gives. Whatever she's always giving out of her abundance. She's not into herself. She hates clothes. She's not into cars. She's not into anything except her children and her grandchildren and her friends and her neighbors. And she's always giving, and she's always sharing out of her abundance. And so, but we do live comfortably because we worked. And we just were very careful to live in a way that was in moderation and simple. So, so what I'm going to be reading this week, well, I was going to read Reformed Ethics this week, The Duties of the Christian Life. I'm going to read this week, and I'm still going to read Ludolph of Saxony, The Life of Jesus Christ, Part 2, Volume 1, Chapters 1 through 57, translated by Milton Walsh. And I'll be reading this week Reformed Systematic Theology, Spirit and Salvation, Volume 3, Joel R. Beeke and Paul M. Smalley. Now you see these big books. One thing about here in Holland, in Reformation Heritage, they sell these books on discount. For example, I got this book in the mail. Amazon sells this book for $60. I got it from Beeke for $30, but I think $34. So I saved 50% off on it. I don't buy new books. The only thing I buy new are Christian books, and the reason why I've told you that is because you can't find good Christian books used. You have to buy them new, and I try to buy them at discount. And I don't buy that many anymore because I just don't. But as far as what I'll be reading, I've also been reading The Interior Circuit, Mexico City Chronicle by Francisco Goldman. And I've been reading High White Notes, The Rise and Fall of Gonzo Journalism by David S. Wills. I've been reading Rasero, a novel by Francisco Rebolledo, translated by Helen R. Lake. I've been reading this. I'm almost halfway through this. And I've been reading The Transcendentalists and Their World by Robert A. Gross. So these are things I've been reading when I'm not reading my Christian books. I also read other things. Sometimes I read a short story. Sometimes I'll read an essay. Sometimes I'll just read like something off, like, what else? Well, I've been reading Motherless in Brooklyn by Jonathan Lethem, which I read at the Book Nook, which I have a copy there at the Book Nook. I'm almost done that. Motherless in Brooklyn, a novel by Jonathan Lethem I've been reading, which I have at the Book Nook. I have 2 copies of it down the lower level, but I forgot to bring them up here this morning. So I'll be reading that. And I was reading yesterday, watching college football, the Edmund Wilson Reader, which I showed you recently as in my used book haul. I went through my lower level and went through my Edmund Wilson collection and my John Steinbeck collection and my Thomas Wolfe collection, and I found I had a bunch of doubles. So I'm going to take those to the Blue Stocking Bookshop for in-store credit sometime soon. So I was reading Edmund Wilson. I was reading a short story by somebody. Can't remember now what her name was. Gilchrist. I read a short story by, which I got in those used book haul I mentioned. So I do read other things besides what I just showed you. I do read, but I'm primarily going to read these books, The Interior Circuit by Goldman, and I'll be reading Gonzo Journalism, High White Notes by David S. Wells, and I will be reading the Transcendentalists and the World. And I do really enjoy been reading this, Rasero, by a novel by Francisco Rebolledo. I mean, I also mentioned I was reading the Edmund Wilson Reader, and yesterday I bought a used biography on Edmund Wilson that I'll be getting in the mail. I have another biography of Edmund Wilson, but the one I bought used, this biography of Edmund Wilson, is the guy who edited it, the Edmund Wilson Reader. He's like an authority on Edmund Wilson. So it was only $5 from some used bookstore. I can go for $5. And I always been fascinated with Edmund Wilson for years. So yeah, I'm writing in my diary, page 1230, getting into Reform ethics, reading the Bible, and today is professional football. Tomorrow's a Monday. I go back to the Book Nook from 10 to 1. Nothing going on the week, no appointments. It should be a quiet week. So I hope you had a good weekend. I thank you for your comments on my last video. And when I was reading that about the rich young ruler, there is also there was another thing. I was reading from the Gospel of Luke, and I was reading about the rich man and Lazarus there in chapter 16 of Luke, and I thought I'd close with that. The rich man and Lazarus. There was a certain rich man who was clothed in purple and fine linen and fared sumptuously every day, but there was a certain beggar named Lazarus, full of sores, who was laid at his gate, desiring to be fed with the crumbs which fell from the rich man's table. Moreover, the dogs came and licked his sores. So it was that the beggar died and was carried by the angels to Abraham's bosom. The rich man also died and was buried, and being tormented in Hades, he lifted up his eyes and saw Abraham afar off and Lazarus in his bosom. Then he cried and said, Father Abraham, have mercy on me. Send Lazarus that he may dip the tip of his finger in water and cool my tongue, for I am tormented in this flame. But Abraham said, Son, remember that in your lifetime you received your good things, and likewise Lazarus evil things, but now he is comforted and you are tormented. Then he said, I beg you therefore, Father, that you would send him to my father's house, for I have 5 brothers, that he may testify to them, lest they also come to this place of torment. And Abraham said to them, They have Moses and the prophets, let them hear them. And he said, No, Father Abraham, but if one goes to them from the dead, they will repent. But he said to him, If they do not hear Moses and the prophets, neither will they be persuaded, though one rise from the dead. So with that, I will close. I hope you have a good reading week. I do pray you're all doing well. So until next time. I don't think there's anything else I want to. I do got that book coming in the mail this week. I do have a book of short stories coming in the mail. I came across this writer from the 80s I never heard of, and I can't remember his name right now, but I ordered used a volume of short stories by him. And if that comes in the mail this week, I'll show that. So until next time, bye.